Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cut Block. I'm your host, Dan Pierce, and today we're going to be continuing with our 2025 federal election coverage. And today we're going to be looking at conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. I'm not going to be looking at the conservative platform yet. I'm going to save that for a separate video. Today we're just going to be looking at Poilievre, the man, the politician, a little bit about his record, and what he would be like on the environment if he were elected prime minister. So we're going to start over on Wikipedia, just take a look at his bio a little bit, and I'll just start by saying Pierre Poilievre is the definition of a career politician. Now, I don't mean that in a derogatory fashion. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with being a politician your entire life. It's really more about what you've done in your time as a politician. And we're going to dig into what Poilievre has done with his time as a federal politician. So let's take a look at how he got his start. Born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, Poilievre graduated in 2008 with a bachelor's degree in international relations from the University of Calgary. Now, I'm not an elitist, but I gotta say, Mark Carney wins the education award. In 2000, he moved to Ottawa to work for Canadian Alliance leader Stockwell Day, and he was first elected in the 2004 federal election. So it's been over 20 years that Pierre Poilievre has been a politician. Under the government of Prime Minister Stephen Harper, he held various parliamentary secretary roles from 2006 to 2013, before serving as Minister for Democratic Reform from 2013 to 2015, and concurrently as Minister of Employment and Social Development in 2015. And I just want to scroll down to one funny detail from Poilievre's childhood. He was definitely a political dweeb. Following a wrestling injury at age 14, Poilievre attended an Alberta Tory Riding Association meeting as a new hobby. As a result, he became interested in politics and started reading political books, including Milton Friedman's Capitalism and Freedom, a book that greatly influenced his politics. And we'll come back to that. But let me just stop and pause for a second. At age 14, he was reading Milton Friedman's Capitalism and Freedom and going to Alberta Tory Riding Association meetings as a hobby. And if only he'd stayed in wrestling, maybe he wouldn't have gotten into politics. But that's a reality we'll never know. Now let's take a look at what Poilievre's record has been in his 20 plus years as a politician. And remember, on this channel, we're just going to be looking at the environment and climate stuff. So we've got a great article here from Jeff Dembicki and D. Smog. And the headline is, Pierre Poilievre voted against environment and climate 400 times, records show. That includes voting nay to bills crafted to hold mining companies accountable for environmental damage, move Canada closer towards achieving its climate targets, create high-quality jobs in low-carbon industries nationwide, and align Canadian laws with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Poilievre's anti-environment record also includes voting yay for legislation designed to weaken environmental safeguards on new industrial projects and accelerate expansion of the oil and gas industry. So basically, if something was going to be a net positive for the environment, like holding mining companies accountable or helping to achieve our climate targets or creating low carbon jobs or, upholding the rights of Indigenous peoples, it was a big nay. But if something was going to weaken our environmental laws and make it easier to pollute the water and the air or accelerate oil and gas expansion, thumbs up. So I think that tells you a lot about what Pierre Poilievre's values are. He, above all else, values oil and gas development, natural resource extraction at the expense of the climate, at the expense of clean water, at the expense of Indigenous rights. That's what his record shows. And we've got a long and illustrious record to look at. Now, Pierre Poilievre does not explicitly come out and deny climate change. He accepts that it's real. He accepts that there is such a thing as man-made climate change. But since he voted in favor of staying in the Paris Climate Agreement back in 2017, more recently, he actually refuses to say whether he's committed to staying in the Paris Climate Accord and reaching those emissions targets. So he's playing coy about it now. especially now that Donald Trump is in power, and people, especially in his base, seem far more inclined to either deny that climate change exists or to say, fine, it exists, but the climate has always changed. That seems to be the go-to line right now for conservatives who don't really want to do anything about climate change. A little bit more here. While Poilievre did not say directly whether he would stick with Canada's targets in the Paris Agreement, he spoke about his plan to fight climate change, which he said would use technology and not carbon taxes to reduce emissions. Quote, "We've already said we will greenlight green projects like small modular nuclear reactors, hydroelectric dams, tidal wave power, and other emissions-free energy that will lead to a massive boom in the clean energy that goes onto our grids and powers our future," Poilievre told reporters. However, at the same time, Poilievre is saying he'll build pipelines in all directions. Now, why might Pierre Poilievre be so pro-pipeline? Now, it may just be ideological, and something tells me that on some deep level it is ideological for him, but also it may have something to do with this. And we've got another great article in DSmog from Jeff Dembicki in which he has done the legwork of mapping Poilievre and the Conservatives' inner circle of lobbyists and right-wing activists. And if we scroll down here, some of the big companies that are deeply connected to the Conservative Party are Koch Industries, Enbridge, the Pathways Alliance, the Canadian Gas Association, and all kinds of other right-wing groups. So, the inner circle of the Conservative Party, the upper echelons, those setting the priorities of the party, are all very deeply entwined with the oil and gas industry. And if we scroll down to here, we've got this really great interactive map. I'm going to post the link in the description here so you can go check this out and explore it for yourself. But he does a really cool job of connecting Poilievre and the Conservatives to all these names and organizations and lobbyists that have connections to, if we go down here, Canadian Gas Association, Tourmaline Oil Corp, the mining sector, Enbridge, Pembina Pipeline Corporation, Koch Government Affairs, Suncor, Koch Industries, Enbridge, Oil and Gas Sector, Barrick Gold, and so on and so on. It's a pretty impressive cadre of connections here, and it's absolutely stacked with lobbyists. Dembicki goes on to say, "It's clear that the Conservative Party's National Council, the party's highest authority on governance matters, is a hotbed for corporate lobbyists." Now, you may be saying to yourself, come on, this is just connected to the Conservative Party, and these are just lobbyists. These are tangential connections. But if we go over here, we see that, in fact, Big Oil is paying big money to pay for private meetings with Pierre Poilievre. Scroll down. Pierre Poilievre told Corporate Canada last May to fire their lobbyists because he will only listen to the voice of the people. But by early July, he was rubbing shoulders with Big Oil's top lobbyists at a $1,650 a plate fundraiser on the sidelines of the Calgary Stampede. Representatives of the Pathways Alliance, the oil sands lobby group under fire for greenwashing, were out in full force for the July 5th fundraising event with Poilievre. Pathways lead lobbyist, Mark Cameron, was joined by vice presidents from Alliance members Suncor, Cenovus, CNRL, and Imperial Oil. The CEOs of Enbridge, Ovintiv, and the Canadian Gas Association were also there, alongside the former CEOs of Cenovus, Enbridge, TC Energy, and Trans Mountain Corporation. It was probably a very friendly gathering, as Poilievre has promised to grant the oil lobby's policy wish list, even though the sector is responsible for nearly a third of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. He has condemned the proposed cap on pollution from the oil and gas sector, would kill the new Federal Impact Assessment Act, and promises to support pipelines south, north, east, and west. The federal clean fuel regulations and clean electricity regulations are also on his hit list, so who is he really serving here? When he's having high-priced fundraisers with the top oil and gas executives and at the same time agreeing to give them everything they could possibly wish for, Pierre Poilievre is not really representing the interests of the people. He's here to represent the interests of the oil industry. In fact, the entire Conservative Party is basically 5 oil companies standing on each other's shoulders wearing a trench coat. And just to wrap things up here with a little bit of fun, remember how I mentioned at the beginning how Pierre Poilievre's early political inspiration was economist Milton Friedman and his book Capitalism and Freedom? Well, The Breach here has a really great little video that they put together. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'll just play the first little bit of it and you can go check it out for yourself.
What event, music, or book has been your biggest political influence? When Pierre Poilievre was asked that question, this is what he replied. Capitalism and Freedom by Milton Friedman. Describing Canada's conservative leader as a Friedman fanboy would be an understatement.
I'm just going to share a little bit of an excerpt from one of the finest economists of the last century, Milton Friedman.
So said the greatest expert on monetary economics in the history of the world, the great Milton Friedman. Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman.
Friedman has been Poilievre's lifelong guru, and his book is a guide to what Poilievre would like to accomplish if he becomes Prime Minister. First published in 1962, Capitalism and Freedom has served as a blueprint for no-holds-barred neoliberal capitalism. These are its elements: slashing social programs, selling off publicly owned assets, shredding regulations that hamper profit-making, and attacking the labor unions that are working people's best defense. In Friedman's imagined free economy, here's what else should not exist: a minimum wage, rent control, public education and housing, the postal service, age-old supports and retirement pensions, and even national parks. He added an infamous note: this list is far from comprehensive.
I think you get the gist of it. You can go check out the rest of the video on The Breach. I'll post the link in the description. So my final thoughts on Pierre Poilievre is he's been a lifelong conservative attack dog since the age of 14. He is a total ideologue, inspired by Milton Friedman. He is a neoliberal through and through. And while he talks a good game about standing with the working class and postures as a populist, in fact, he's really working for the oil and gas industry. He's sitting down to $1,600 a plate fundraiser dinners with the big CEOs of the big oil and gas companies, and that's who he's really working for. At any turn, he would cut any social program. He will vote against any climate action. He will ram through any pipeline. He will trample on Indigenous rights. And we know that because that's what he's done his entire career. We have a whole 20-year history to look at. So there's no mystery about what a Pierre Poilievre government will look like. We've already seen it with Stephen Harper, only now it will be even more racked with the most loathsome right-wing ghouls who are going to use all their dark powers to push through resource extraction projects, to gut environmental laws, and to trample on Indigenous rights. So that's what we can expect from Pierre Poilievre. Obviously, I'm not a fan. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of Mark Carney either, but these are the choices that we're faced with, and there is a clear difference between the liberals and the conservatives. On the one side, you've got Mark Carney. While he is a centrist, I think he does believe in climate change. He does understand the science. He does have a commitment to making progress on that. Where Pierre Poilievre, while he might say he believes in climate change, and while he now refuses to say whether he would stay in the Paris Climate Accord, we know for sure that everything that he supports, everything that he's promising to do, everything that he has done in his entire career has made climate change worse and will continue to make climate change worse and will do absolutely nothing to improve the situation. And his one stance on how we're going to deal with climate change is just basically technology. And we're going to get into that more next time when we go through the two parties' platforms, and we'll go through more of the details of what they're actually promising to do. But that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what we're doing here, hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell at the top so that you get all the notifications when we have new videos. And if you want to support our work, we have a Patreon page. Go over there. You can become a member and support us for $3, $5, $10 a month, whatever you can do. Thank you so much and have a great day.